use the nights of the holy month of Ramadan. For indeed, this month of Ramadan, we have no guarantee that we'll be here 2024, month of Ramadan. For indeed, this month of Ramadan is an opportunity, as we mentioned the first week, that this opportunity that we have, we need to maximize it. So, of course, one would like to look forward to Eid and look forward to the joyful days of Eid, but don't waste the time that they have now in the month of Ramadan just thinking about Eid. Rather, use this opportunity, use the holy month of Ramadan to the best possible way, inshallah.
Inshallah, inshallah. So the month is not over yet. And in fact, as the Sayyid mentioned, that the Holy Prophet ﷺ would actually really put an emphasis on these last days in ibadah and in worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Sayyid, with the month coming to an end, I believe it calls for some reflection. So this month of Ramadan passed, as have perhaps many throughout our lives and in the past. How do I know that I truly benefited from this month of Ramadan the way that perhaps is expected from me, and to the best way as possible, or the best as possible I benefited from this month of Ramadan? How can I go about understanding that?
So the Holy Quran mentions that the purpose of fasting, the main purpose of fasting is لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, in order for us to gain God consciousness, in order for us to gain taqwa. And the core of the Ramadan's blessings this holy month is for us to truly gain taqwa, to achieve taqwa. And of course, the Holy Prophet in his sermon welcoming the holy month of Ramadan would mention to Amir al-Mu'minin and mention to everyone in the gathering, the blessed gathering, that the أفضل الأعمال في هذا الشهر الورع عن محارم الله. The best of deeds is to stay away from those acts which are prohibited by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those acts that displease Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this taqwa, which is deeply rooted within the hearts, this power, this consciousness to constantly remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to gain nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the fear of punishment of displeasing Allah, the fear of refraining from those things that please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the longing for gaining the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this balance between raja and khawf, between the hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shall forgive me for my past and I'll continue to perform good deeds, and khawf, the fear of displeasing Allah and fear of my sins in my past, should gain me clearer towards the Sirat al-Mustaqim that I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That straight path that we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be on. Now, as we're in these nights and days, we need to still seek that taqwa, of course, in the month of Ramadan, as we're fasting, and try our best to improve our taqwa. It would be unfortunate if in the month of Ramadan, and especially these last few days and nights, I go back to my previous habits. I go back towards my sins. I go back to those things that I used to usually perform before the month of Ramadan. Yes, there are certain things that we will naturally go back to. For example, having breakfast, or having lunch, or changes in our meals and our drinking of water and everything throughout the day. But there are things that I need to actually focus, especially in the month of Ramadan. Change, improve, reform myself. One being improvement in my taqwa Allah. Staying away and abstaining from sins and haram. Of course, we may say this as something quite easy. It is, of course, a challenge and difficulty. And therefore, there needs to be a lot of work or reflection towards it. A lot of homework. How in the month of Ramadan I manage to stay away from them, and how I will try my best to keep that power, that energy within me, that discipline within me to stay away from those sins and from those haram throughout the year. And therefore, we remind ourselves from the narration of Amir al-Mu'minin Ali ibn Abi Talib sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, yawma, whoever's 2 days are the same, then he's wasted his days. There should be a continuous cycle of improvement in my life. An improvement in my life. From yesterday to today, there needs to be a change. And today, to plan ahead to tomorrow, I need to plan, improve myself. And there are some who say, well, I'm like this, like it or not, and I'm not going to change. No, that's not the right attitude. That attitude needs to change. There can even be small changes, small steps in our lives, which have huge lasting effects for future. And these small steps that we can take, we can think of, inshallah, in the month of Ramadan, so that when we leave the month of Ramadan, we can really have a positive outlook and positive change. Certain simple things that we do a lot in the whole month of Ramadan, why do we not perform after the month of Ramadan? Like the recitation of the Holy Quran, the verses of the Holy Quran, the pages of the Holy Quran. We place so much effort to recite the Quran within the month of Ramadan. Let's make sure that we continue reciting it outside the holy month of Ramadan. Like, for example, attending Salat al-Jama'ah. In the month of Ramadan, we love to attend Salat al-Jama'ah and pray together with the community. Let's try to do that outside the month of Ramadan. Like in the month of Ramadan, we have so much focus on the timing of Salah. You see, everyone suddenly they've memorized the time. What time is Fajr and Maghrib especially. What time they can stop eating and drinking, and what time they can start to eat and drink. And to the dot, to the second, Maghrib, for example, is 6:23 p.m. He knows it for sure today. And we'll make sure that inshallah he prays at that time. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states that inna salata kanat al mu'minina kitaban mawquta. Salah was verily prescribed at a certain time for the mu'min, the believers. So a true mu'min will not just be in the month of Ramadan aware and conscious of the time, but throughout the year is aware of the timing of Salah. Make sure that they pray Salah at its prescribed time. So these nights and days should also be nights of reflection, self-thought, self-thinking, and how to continue the change, inshallah, within me.
Inshallah, inshallah. Ahsantum, Sayyidina Aziz. So keeping in mind basically that one of the main goals perhaps was for the month of Ramadan and for fasting is to achieve that taqwa and that God consciousness, and to also try and have these habits that we've gotten used to in the month of Ramadan, these practices which are very good. Reciting the Holy Quran, praying Jama'ah, attending the masajid more, and so on and so forth, to not, God forbid, abandon these after the month of Ramadan. Rather, try to hold on to them for the upcoming months and throughout the year. Perhaps even not to that same extent, but carrying on to them and holding them still. Or, for example, understanding and memorizing and knowing the times of prayers and praying them on time, inshallah ta'ala. So, Sayyid, with this in mind, and after experiencing this month of Ramadan, how are some ways that we can prepare perhaps for the next month? So with that preparation, actually, does it start for the next month of Ramadan? Does that start from now? Does that start from the month of Rajab next year? What are some ways that we can basically make sure that we do even better next year, inshallah?
Yeah, we're looking quite far ahead to look all the way to the next year, month of Ramadan. But what we actually do reciting dua is that, oh Allah, if this is my last month of Ramadan, اجعلني من المرحومين, those who are truly blessed. ولا تجعلني من المحرومين, and do not allow me to be of those who they wasted the great opportunity of the month of Ramadan. Of course, the hadith says that لو كان العبد, the mu'min, who knew the true greatness of the holy month of Ramadan, لَوَدَّ أَن يَكُونَ رَمَضَانَ كُلَّ السَّنَةِ. He wouldn't just be looking towards Ramadan next year. He would wish that the month of Ramadan be every single day. You know, there are some people, they don't look forward for the month of Ramadan. They're like, oh no, this is going to happen, this is going to change in my lifestyle. Rather, we should be looking forward to it. We should be anticipating it, yearning for it. And a true mu'min, a true believer, he loves Shahr Ramadan so much that he wants Ramadan be the whole year. Now, of course, the month of Ramadan being the whole year, not in terms of just fiqhan, in terms of fasting the whole year, but spiritually throughout the year, being aware of the holy month of Ramadan. Now, we want to look forward to next year's month of Ramadan, of course, but let's also look forward to, from the day of Eid onwards, what must I have done from the past month of Ramadan? And what do I need to do looking forward, inshallah, for the next days, months, and years till we reach the months of Rajab, Sha'ban, Ramadan. Month of Rajab, when people start to perform their mustahab fast or their qada fast, it starts to click in that actually month of Ramadan is 2 months away, and then Sha'ban 1 month away. But when it comes to the day of Eid, which is of course haram to fast, the day of Eid al-Fitr and the day of Eid al-Adha, Eid al-Hajj, there are the beautiful verses that we recite in the Salah of the Eid. Highly recommended to recite Surah Al-A'la and Surah Al-Shams. سبح اسم ربك الأعلى والشمس وضحاها. And you find two significant verses that are points of reflection for us all. After the whole month of fasting, 29 days or 30 days of fasting, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in these verses, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ تَزَكَّى قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. Aflah means, of course, successful, the one who done best. Who was the one who done best in the month of Ramadan? Man zakkaha, man tazakka, zakkaha, the one who performed tazkiyah, tazkiyatun nafs. Of course, there is a form of tazkiyah. Tazkiyah means purification, and the word zakat comes from the word tazkiyah. There is a form of zakat which is wajib to be performed on the day of Eid after the holy month of Ramadan, zakatul fitr, upon every family to give zakatul fitr to the poor. But and that is your finances to be purified, to give away and remember the poor. But there is a more significant tazkiyah, and that is to truly be successful, you must have performed tazkiyatun nafs. Tazkiyatun nafs sayyidul ibadah. The best form of worship, or the master in worship, is tazkiyatun nafs. Tazkiyatun nafs means what? To purify your nafs. That your nafs, which are nafs, which are self, which has a inclination towards sinful desires, inclination towards evil, inclination towards haram, that I've used the month of Ramadan to control them. To use the month of Ramadan to clear it from the impurities, to cleanse my soul from that nafsul ammara and nafsul lawama, from those nafs, from those souls or selves that can pull me towards haram, that can invite me towards haram. I want to reach that stage of perfection, not reach that stage of certitude, which the Imams of the Ahlulbayt, the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they were at such a great status of اطمئنان in their nafs. Nafsul mutma'inna. That nafs, that self, that was so pure, that would perform everything for the sake of Allah, would never perform anything displeasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, as we're coming towards the last days of the month of Ramadan, I should be cleansing myself. I should constantly cleanse myself from those impurities, so that when I come out the month of Ramadan, I've now become a clean slate heart, just out from the car wash. And a great person is the one who keeps their car as clean as possible and keep this heart of mine full of taqwa, full of iman, full of purity, inshallah. That is a true aim that we need to look forward to, inshallah.
Inshallah. I think that point on tazkiyat an-nafs is so important, especially with the month of Ramadan. I think the fact that we are, commanded to abstain from eating and abstain from drinking and other things just builds that strength of us to battle our nafs when it goes for the desires that are forbidden, God forbid. And I think the month of Ramadan and fasting is that kind of boost or that help that we need to, throughout the year, face that nafs when it sometimes, God forbid, calls us towards evil and haram, that we have the ability, we have the strength to say no to it and to purify it and to have it to incline toward good, inshallah. So Sayyid, of course, the month of Ramadan, as we have mentioned already, it requires for us to abstain from food and to abstain from drinking, and so on. And so some of us may find this difficult, and I think every single one of us, finds it difficult, especially those last few hours, especially if you have work or school, right? So is there a problem with facing difficulty, perhaps, does a true mu'min or a true believer no longer feel any suffering, or is that not actually the case? And a follow-up question to that is, how can somebody therefore look forward to or wish that the whole year was the month of Ramadan, even though it calls for such perhaps pain and hunger and so on?
Something barakallah fikum. Of course, fasting throughout the year is highly recommended, apart from the days of Eid, al-Fitr and Adha, which fasting is haram. And according to the Maraji ulama, fasting on the day of Ashura is makruh. Other than that, throughout the year, fasting is mustahab and recommended. Islamically, it's highly recommended, and fasting also is, you find the physicians, the doctors, the health experts are recommending that one fast. Find the 2+5, that 2 days in the week. It's highly recommended scientifically to fast. Now, with everything in life, there are challenges, there are difficulties, there are places that one can try to improve themselves. And with those challenges, one can reach their target aim, reach their bonus in their life. No one's going to get an easy reward in such a simple manner. Rather, you find that task that you want to achieve, by going through difficulty, going through challenges, going through the difficult moments that you're going through, you will be able to what? You'll be able to achieve perfection. In the same way, you find that the Ahlulbayt alayhim wassalam and the Quran teaches us, Inna ma'al usri yusra. Verily, with difficulty, there shall be ease. Indeed, the Quran says, with difficulty, there shall be ease. And that's why the Ahlulbayt alayhim wassalam would mention with regards to perseverance and juhd, and to struggle and to try their very, very, very best to achieve your target at the end of the day. So if one wants to fast and should fast and try to fast, recommended mustahab fast throughout the year, let them use that as an opportunity to discipline themselves and strengthen their willpower and gain the control of the nafs, the tazkiyatun nafs throughout the year. Of course, month of Rajab and Sha'ban, highly recommended to fast, but doesn't mean that we avoid fasting throughout the year until the month of Rajab and Sha'ban. We have other days which are highly recommended to fast. For example, in Eid al-Ghadir, Thursdays, Mondays are highly recommended to fast. And with that fast, let us also try, as we done in the holy month of Ramadan, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, is to fast also in order to gain taqwa and God consciousness.
Inshallah, inshallah. So Sayyid, with these last few nights and days of the month of Ramadan approaching, have certain a'mal, certain du'as, certain acts of worship that we're recommended to do these last few nights to end off our month of Ramadan?
You see, the holy month of Ramadan, the last days, the last nights, is recommended to stay in ibadah, stay in dua, stay in i'tikaf. Even I know mu'mineen that are going through the masajid and staying the nights awake in the masajid and the prayers. Highly recommended to, if you can, finish your khatam, finish your recitation of the Holy Quran, recite the dua of the holy month of Ramadan. To some people, what they do is they use the last night of the 27th, because the odd nights of the holy month of Ramadan, especially the last 10 nights of the holy month of Ramadan, we find it's highly recommended to perform more the du'as of Layali al-Qadr. Some people think it's only 19th, 21st, 23rd. No, you can continue. And many people also use the night of the 27th, which we are approaching, to use as the Layali al-Qadr, the Layali of du'as, the Layali of prayers. Constantly, continue to recite Dua al-Iftitah, for example, Dua Abu Hamza al-Thamali, Dua al-Sahar, the du'as that you started the holy month. You see some people in the first few days of the month of Ramadan, they recite the du'as of the holy month of Ramadan, the Quran recitation, but sometimes they deflate after Laylatul Qadr and say, that's it, I've done all my duties, now it's my turn to go to shopping, go to games, and everything else, preparing for Eid. No, use the nights and days of the holy month of Ramadan. There are specific du'as to recite in the nights, as we said, the nights of Qadr also. But when it comes to the night of Eid, there is a huge night. It's a huge night of ibadah and dua. So continue to recite the du'as that have been recommended, inshallah.
Inshallah, inshallah. So Sayyid, I've seen personally some who recite some du'as that are for certain events or for certain times. For example, dua iftitah, but I perhaps see them reciting it out of the month of Ramadan, at least perhaps certain segments of that dua. So we have these beautiful du'as in the month of Ramadan, dua Abu Hamza Thamali, or dua al-Iftitah, or dua al-Jawshan. Is it recommended to also recite these dua perhaps other times throughout the year? Is it something that we're encouraged to do or not encouraged to do? Are they set for only these specific times? If you can just please give some advice on that.
So dua al-Iftitah is highly recommended to recite in the evening or after iftar, nights of the holy month of Ramadan. Dua Shahr Ramadan's dua is dua Abu Hamza al-Thamali, dua al-Sahar. Now, it's a dua, it's a recommended deed to perform. Duas have recommended times and recommended places to perform them specifically. But if someone wants to recite this dua any time of the year, throughout the year, there's no harm. It's not a sinful act to do, or it's not something disliked to perform. However, you would find that even when you recite this dua, there are certain indications of that this dua, reciting it in the month of Ramadan. For example, if someone was to recite dua Abu Hamza al-Thamali and he's in Hajj, and of course a great dua to recite, and he say Allahumma rzuqna Hajj Bayt al-Haram, and he's also already in Hajj. So because in the dua of Sahar dua of Abu Hamza Thumali, it mentions that, oh, Allah allow me this year to perform the Hajj ziyarah. So there's no harm, and some people would like to reflect on the words of the dua. So what you could do is, after the holy month of Ramadan, read a paragraph a day, for example, or a few verses a day, and reflect on those verses. Some of them are moments of reflection on a day-to-day basis. For example, in the dua of Abu Hamza, when he mentions that, oh Allah, I remember my sins and I remember my grave, and I cry for that moment that I'll be all alone. Wahidan farida. I'll be all alone. Wahidan ghariba. And this moment is a moment that I can cry for every day. Think of every day, the moments that I'll be placed in my qabr, the moments that I'll be carried in my kafan, the moments that I'll be in my coffin. So these are moments that I can reflect on throughout the year. Or the moments where Imam mentions that لو علم الأرضون, if the people of the world knew about, people on earth knew about my sins, they would have been ashamed of me. They would have run away from me. لَصَاخَطَتْ, the earth would have blown away from its embarrassment from my actions, from my sins. So these are moments, and I would recommend people to do that, to use the nights and days after the month of Ramadan to take short, bite-sized chunks of a dua that they would like to have an affinity and reflection on, have a certain reflect on, use that opportunity to do so. Even when it comes to reciting Dua Kumail, many of us recite Dua Kumail on a week-to-week basis on a Thursday, but do we reflect on it? Do we recite the dua on it? Do we read it, or do we understand it? So these are moments to do so, inshallah.
Inshallah, inshallah. So Sayyid, with the night and day of Eid approaching, in a few days, inshallah, after we have revived these last nights and days of Ramadan in worship and in ibadah and benefiting from it as much as possible. So Eid is something that we see as, a time of festivity, a time of celebration, of gift giving, of, meeting with family, right? Wearing nice new clothes and so on, and celebration. So is this something that basically is the correct view of Eid, or is it perhaps an incomplete view? How is the correct view perhaps towards the Eid, especially now Eid al-Fitr coming?
So Eid, of course, is a day of joy, is a day of celebration, is a day of change. The true Eid is a day that we celebrate with the Imam of our time, inshallah. And that is a true Eid for us. Eid, in his absence, is not the real happiness and joy. That is the day that we anticipate, whereby we have the Imam returning justice and peace, happiness and blessings of the divine Imam with us. The day of Eid is a day of change, of course, a day that we are no longer allowed to fast, and it's haram to fast. It's a day of reflection, not necessarily a day of wearing new clothes. That's not the main aim of Eid. Yes, it's recommended to wear clean clothes, to wear nice clothes, beautiful clothes. All of the clothing, of course, is always recommended to do so. When you go to the masjid, to wear nicest of clothes. So when you go to the Salatul Eid, to perfume yourself, to dress appropriately. And of course, with all this in mind, libasu taqwa dhalika khair, Allah says. The best of libas, the best of clothing is the clothing of taqwa, the clothing of God consciousness, the clothing of protection from sins and haram. Now, we have in narrations that Al-Eid is not just about, it's not necessarily about wearing new clothes, but كل يوم, every day, that one does not perform ma'asiyah of Allah, that does not sin and perform act of disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فهو يوم عيد. That day is a day of Eid. That's a day that you should congratulate yourself. Which reminds me that every day I should see at the end of the day, how was my day today? What good deed did I perform? Tick. What sin did I perform? Haram act. Cross. How am I going to stay away from that haram tomorrow? How am I going to improve that good deed and increase it tomorrow? Which, regards to the nafs that we've been talking about, Brother Hussein, is that I want to stay away from sins, of course. I want to refrain from sins. I want to celebrate Eid every day, not just on Eid al-Fitr, to celebrate and enjoy. But every day I want to congratulate myself that, mashallah, I've had a Eid today. Friday is a day of Eid, a day of joy also. So what we could do, and this is the advice from the Ahlulbayt alayhim as-salam, is every day perform muhasabatun nafs. Muhasabatun nafs means what? Self-accountability. Self-account. Account your deeds. The Imam said, من لم يحاسب نفسه في كل يوم فليس منا. One who does not perform muhasabatun nafs every single day, then is not one of us. And what does it, muhasabatun nafs, what does it mean? Or what does it entail? One moment of reflection, thinking a hisab of your nafs, your day. How did it go? What can I improve? And what can I stay away from and refrain? And with that, I will need to perform what? Musharaba. Self-conditioning. That throughout the day, I condition myself to perform certain good deeds and stay away from some haram. What else? Muraqabah. Every day, let me be aware that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching me and seeing me. Alam ya'lam bi anna Allah yara. Mankind not aware that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching them, is aware of your actions, is seeing you. When Imam Hussein alayhi salam said to that man, let's go to a place where God cannot see you, وَافْعَلْ مَا شِئْتَ, and then sin, and then perform what you want. So where can I go that God cannot see me? So how can you sin? We say, then how can you sin where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is seeing you, is aware of your actions? So that's a true Eid, a true day of joy and celebration. And with that in mind, the only ones who were truly ma'soom, and we congratulate them from staying away from sin every single day of their life, were the Imams, the Holy Prophet, prophets of the Ahlulbayt alayhim as-salam. The Imams of the Ahlulbayt alayhim as-salam, the Holy Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Fatima az-Zahra alayhi as-salam. So the closer we are to the Ahlulbayt alayhim as-salam, the closer we can try to gain that nearness from isma. That nearness from what? From staying away from sins, from refraining from haram, from absolute consciousness, and from taqwa Allah. So when it comes to the Eid, let me also remind myself of the duties. How much closer did I gain nearness to the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam? How much did I gain nearness to the Holy Quran, the Thaqalain? Of course, when it comes to the day of Eid, there are a number of recommended deeds to perform, of course. Let's remind ourselves, Brother Hussein. Some of them mashallah, we do perform regularly. For example, it is highly recommended on the day of Eid to perform the ghusl. Again, remember when we perform ghusl, it's not just physical washing, but it should be a spiritual cleansing of the body, cleansing of the heart, reminder of yourself. Also, highly recommended to perform what? In this time and age, Salatul Eid, to attend Salatul Eid. In Jama'ah, highly recommend. The dua that we recite has so much words of reflection within it. Allahumma ahla al-kibriya'i wal-'azama wa ahla al-judi wal-jabarut. As'aluka bihaqqi hadha al-yawm alladhi ja'altahu lil-muslimin 'ida. Reflect on these words. Of course, before Salatul Eid, to give the Zakat al-Fitra. Highly recommended to congratulate one another. And this is a deed that we should perform, to whether it means to visit one another's homes, to contact your family members, your grandparents, your aunties, your uncles, congratulate them on this occasion, and also remind one another that تقبل الله الأعمال, may Allah accept your deeds in the holy month of Ramadan. And inshallah, ينعاد علينا وعليكم, inshallah, it returns the month of Ramadan to us all, inshallah. Yeah, 2024, 2024. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have that glorious opportunity of the holy month of Ramadan. I think the unique beauty of the holy month of Ramadan is wherever you go in the world, Muslims are together, remembering the holy month of Ramadan, remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Together they are fasting. Together they are having iftar. And this is an opportunity for us all to remind ourselves of the unity of the Muslim Ummah. That together, inshallah, we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We raise our hands in reflection. We raise our hands to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to the skies, to the heavens, and pray for the reappearance of our beloved Imam, inshallah, and pray for khayr al-dunya wal-akhirah, inshallah.
Inshallah, inshallah. Ahsantum, thank you for that, Sayyid. Sayyid, so of course the month of Ramadan is and continues to be perhaps the longest time of like a spiritual break, a spiritual refuel and re-energizing ourselves. But we do have occasions throughout the year which we can benefit from as well. So the different mawalid and births of the Imams and of the Ma'sumin, and their istishhad and their martyrdom dates, as well as, for example, Eid al-Ghadir or the Mab'ath of the Holy Prophet, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, so on. So how we take advantage of, taking advantage of the month of Ramadan throughout the communities, alhamdulillah, and alhamdulillah, we have people coming to masajid more, people gathering more together. But how can we take advantage of those events that are scattered throughout the year as well, for the better of ourselves and our deen, inshallah?
Sorry, I missed some of your question, but I think you mentioned at the end that due to technical network, I think it went, but I think you meant that how can we continue throughout the year remembering the mawalid and the shahada of the Imams of the Ahlulbayt, to have that connection with the Imams of the Ahlulbayt?
Yes, and
of course,
the end goal is to get them closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just as we did with the month.
Ahsantum. So the Thaqalain, the two weighty ornament jewels that the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned, the Holy Quran and the Ahlul Bayt alayhim wassalam, are not for a certain time and period, but throughout our lives and eternity, for the ahad, for us to have the covenant that we have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Holy Prophet says, they shall not split apart, they should not separate, until they return to me at the hawd, at the pool of Kawthar, at the pool of Kawthar in Jannah, inshallah, the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt. And we wish to gain Jannah. We wish to be rewarded with Jannah, inshallah. So therefore, throughout the year, we need to have that affinity and affection an attraction to the Holy Quran and the Ahlulbayt alayhim salam. We mentioned the Quran earlier. Ahlulbayt alayhim salam. Throughout the year, we have in the month of Shawwal, Shahadat anniversary of Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq salawatullah wasalam alayhi. And we are Ja'fari Shia, following the madhab of Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq salawatullah wasalam alayhi. How many of us are having that link with Imam al-Sadiq? How many of us will attend the majlis, the masjid, the Husayniyah during the Shahadat of Imam al-Sadiq? Why during the Shahadat of Amir al-Mu'mineen a few weeks before, we were crowding in the masjid in Husayniyah? But Shahadat Imam al-Sadiq, God forbid we any time think that, oh, he doesn't, we don't really need to go or anything. No, we should put an extra emphasis to go to the center to commemorate the Shahadat of the beloved sixth Imam, and throughout the year. So we need to look ahead in our calendar also, Islamic calendar. This is something important that I remind my brothers and sisters. Sometimes you find some people, what they do is they book certain events and they just look into the Gregorian calendar, and then we tell them, Habibi, you just booked your wedding date, but you know, it's the days of the Shahadat of Sayyidah Fatimah al-Zahra alayhi salam. He says, oh, I had no idea. That's something of a wake-up call, that you need to ensure that your events are in accordance to the days of the Wilada or the Shahadat, the blessed days of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim wassalam. We have in narrations that certain days of the week, certain acts are recommended to do. Certain acts are disliked to do. Days of Fridays, a highly blessed day, for example, what acts are recommended to do? Days of Saturday, Sunday, what day is recommended to travel, what day is not recommended to travel, what day recommended to buy a house, what day to move into a house. And these are all recommended according to the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. What day is recommended to start a new job, work, or anything. All of these have blessings. All of these have a barakah in my life. So in the same way, whenever I want to do something, look, how is it going to get me close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the wasila of the Ahlul Bayt, through the teachings of the Quran, and look ahead. Look ahead throughout the year. The same way you plan your life, you plan your different lifestyle, plan your work and lifestyle in accordance to the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdalus salatu wassalam. So we have the remembrance of Jannatul Baqi, the destruction of Baqi, coming up after Eid, a week after Eid, for example. We have Shahadat of Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, and the Wilada of Imam Rada alayhi salam in the month of the Qa'dah, and these events to look forward to and make sure that we are those who may yu'addim sha'a'ir Allah, those who exalt and highlight the great signs that bring us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And remind ourselves of Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq salawatullah wasalam alayhi, who says that our true Shia, our true followers are those يَفْرَحُونَ لِفَرَحِنَا وَيَحْزَنُونَ لِحُزْنِنَا. They are happy during the moments of joy and happiness, our moments of joy and happiness. And they are sad, tearful, full of grief during the moments of our sadness, sadness of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdalus salatu wassalam. And what's interesting is many times we feel that being joyful and being full of sadness is only for those who are close to the vicinity of the Ahlul Bayt. Only those who are in the cities of the blessed shrines. And sometimes we feel this sadness within us that I wish I was today in Najaf, I wish today I was in Karbala, I wish I was in Mashhad, Qom, Mecca, Medina, and these wonderful blessed cities. A man came to the sixth Imam. He said, Ya Ibn Rasulillah, you are in this beloved city and we feel some difficulty. And that is that the ghurba, that distance that we are from you. And we're not sure what's our situation. Imam says, تحدثون تجلسون وتحدثون. Do you sit down and gather and discuss and talk about reviving our affairs and our teachings? He said, yes. نعم نعم يا رسول الله. He says, Imam says, تلك المجالس أحبها رحم الله من أحيا أمرنا. These gatherings are the gatherings that we love. Wherever you are. Brother Hussein, you are in one part of the world. We are in one part of the world. The mu'mineen are one part of the world. Everyone is one part of the world. But as long as we revive the teachings of the Ahlulbayt, we discuss the teachings of the Ahlulbayt, we speak regards to the Holy Quran, we bring others closer to the Ahlulbayt and the Quran, these are majalis, these are gatherings that the Imams of the Ahlulbayt state, أحبها, we love them. So wherever we are in the world, inshallah, let us try our best to perform everything in love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the love of Allah, for the love of the Holy Quran, for the love of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. And remember the Imam of our time in our du'as and prayers, inshallah. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us خير الدنيا والآخرة, inshallah.
Ilahi ameen, ilahi ameen. May Allah give us tawfiq to do so. And just before we wrap up here, just some last words on how we can benefit from just these last few days of the month of Ramadan. Just some practical advice from you, Sayyidina, before we wrap up, inshallah.
The dua that we recite, and I would recite it, inshallah. Ilahi rabiha as-sa'imun. Oh Allah, the ones who are truly victorious, successful, they really won, those who truly fasted. They fasted correctly. They fasted صوم القلب وصوم اللسان and صوم الباطن. The three forms of fasting. The heart was fasting, the tongue was fasting, and the stomach was fasting. وفاز القائم. And who else was victorious and successful? Those who stayed awake at night in ibadah, قيام الليل. إلهي ربح الصائمون وفاز القائمون ونجى المخلصون. And those who gain salvation are those who were sincere, ikhlas. They performed their deeds, all their deeds, with khulus al-niyyah wa khulus al-amal. They sincerely performed the ikhlas for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So let's use these three, inshallah. Fast, stay awake at night in ibadah, stay awake throughout the moments in ibadah, and most importantly, everything in our life to be full of ikhlas.
Inshallah, inshallah. Ahsantum, thank you so much for that, Sayyidina al-Aziz. And I benefited, inshallah, all of the viewers benefited as well. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of your a'mal once again, and please keep us in your dua. Thank you, Sayyidina, so much for being here tonight. And
Ahsantum, barakallah fikum. Don't forget us in your du'as and prayers, inshallah.
Inshallah, inshallah. Likewise, Samahta Sayyid. That's for us, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.